Let's make my vintage cobblestone quilt pattern that uses 10-inch squares. For this pattern, you will need 42 10-inch squares, yielding you a 48-inch by 63-inch throw size quilt. Or you can use 72 10-inch squares to create a 64-inch by 81-inch twin size quilt. The fabric collection I am using is well over 5+ years old. However, Basic Gray has a similar collection called Bordeaux that I'm still seeing is available. Now let's get started. With each 10-inch square, subcut one 4.5-inch by 9.5-inch rectangle and 4 2.5-inch by 5-inch rectangles. And that's it. Pretty simple cutting instructions, and you'll just repeat this step to all of your 10-inch squares. Once everything is cut, you're going to select 4 2.5-inch by 5-inch rectangles in mixed prints and form the block below. Next, sew them together to form rows, and then lastly, sew those rows together to complete a 4.5-inch by 9.5-inch quilt block. Next, after completing your scrappy block, sew another mixed print 4.5-inch by 9.5-inch rectangle to the left side of your block, leaving you with a 8.5-inch by 9.5-inch rectangle quilt block. Repeat these steps until you have made a total of 42 quilt blocks for the throw size or 72 quilt blocks for the twin size. Once all of your blocks are completed, for your odd rows, you'll just lay each block out side by side. Then for your even rows, you'll rotate them 180 degrees to give it that checkerboard-like pattern. Then as always, sew your blocks together to form rows, and lastly, sew your rows together to complete your quilt top. And here is what my vintage cobblestone quilt top looks like all finished. For the backing, I am using a Moda Dot Grunge that is pretty close to this collection. Then as for the thread choice, I am going with Mocha by Glide Threads. And here is what my quilt looks like all quilted out. For my longarm quilters, I chose Greek figure 8, designed by yours truly, Moonkin Stitchery, which I will link down below in the video's description. Once again, one 42 count layer cake will yield you a 48-inch by 63-inch throw size quilt, or you can use 72 10-inch squares to create a 64-inch by 81-inch twin size quilt to give you a few more options. I do hope you have enjoyed today's tutorial. If you could please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you can be notified for your next amazing quilt project.